Hey everybody, I'm Matt Smith. I am the Chief Medical Instructor for Sheepdog Response. I teach the Tactical Trauma and Response course for Sheepdog. I'm also one of the Tactical Shooting Instructors and Self-Defense Instructors for Sheepdog. If you've had a chance to come out and do some training with us, we travel the country doing training with lots of folks. It's good to see you again. If you haven't had the opportunity to get out and train with me, we're hoping to get you out soon, but unfortunately the COVID-19 pandemic is upon us, and so I'm coming to you from this studio. But luckily, we've put together a video series of things that you can work on, things that you can train on from home in the meantime until we can get back together face to face and get some live action training going on. In response to some of the questions that we've got, we have put together this video. It's about austere medicine. Some folks have written us and asked us, hey, what do I need to know about medicine if I'm in an austere environment or in an environment where I don't have access to a hospital or doctor or medical equipment? It's a big subject. I couldn't teach you everything you need to know about austere medicine in one video. I probably couldn't do it in 100 videos. It takes years of education and practical learning to be good at austere medicine. But what I have done is I've used this video to put together a list of resources that I've used over the years, reliable resources that are in print form that you can acquire. And if for some reason the lights go out and the balloon goes up, then and it's time to boogaloo, then these are some print resources that you can have. They're going to help you out in that situation. Some of them are technical manuals that are going to require some technical knowledge, and other ones are real simple. Most of them are real simple, easy to understand manuals. And a lot of them I've learned about in my background of medicine, which is from being in the Special Forces. So I've been a Special Forces medic for decades now, and these are some of the books that I've used the whole time I've been in Special Forces, and they are still are great resources to this very day. So with no further ado, let's jump right into it. The very first book that we're going to talk about today is the Special Operations Forces Medical Handbook. This Special Operations Forces Medical Handbook, you can get it if you can find it on the open market. It's about a $30 handbook. It comes in a ring-bound version if you can get your hands on it. That's actually with weatherproof pages. It's used in the SOF Medical Schoolhouse. So when all the Special Operations Forces send all their medical folks to the schoolhouse, this is a medical handbook that they use for instruction. It's a very good medical handbook. It does have a lot of medical terminology in it. So if you don't have an education in medical terminology, or you don't understand some of those big $10 medical words, some of it's going to be very difficult to understand. It does have a comprehensive list of drugs and medical procedures that you can use. But like I said, it's medical documentation designed to teach medical students. So it may be a little bit tough for people to read, but without a doubt, it's some of the most cutting edge field medicine and tactical medicine ever compiled anywhere in one resource. It's about this thick. It's a monster, and the fact that they put it together in a weatherproof form surely makes it worth the 30 or 40 bucks that you might pay for it. The only drawback to this resource, if you can get your hands on it, great, but the only drawback is a lot of medical terminology. So if you don't understand technical medical terms, it's going to be very difficult to understand some of the stuff. But without a doubt, the diagrams and the pictures and illustrations in this book are amazing. Amazing color illustrations of what you might see if you're dealing with infection or some different types of wounds, and the procedures, photographs of procedures and how to conduct them. So great resource, just might be a little bit technical. The next one I'm going to show you, this is the U.S. Army Special Forces Medical Handbook. Now this thing is it predates the SOF Medical Handbook that we just talked about. The SOF Medical Handbook that we just talked about is the current contemporary resource that they use for Special Operations Forces training. This one you might see it on the shelf. The only reason I bring it up is because I see it on the shelf. You can get this thing for about 15 bucks and it seems like a good deal. I literally have seen this thing on the bookshelf at Barnes & Noble's many times. I see them all the time in Army surplus stores and military surplus stores. I'm here to tell you, you don't want this book. It's out of date. This version is the 1980s version of them, but I see a lot of them floating around, and most of the techniques, most of everything that's in this manual, there's something newer and better out there. Although some of the old timers like myself might still have one. I still have one. I love to resource it, but there's a lot of things in here that's old medicine and doesn't really jive with contemporary medicine. So don't, if you think you got a deal on one, you didn't. So don't confuse this guy with this guy. That's the one you want right there. You want the soft medical handbook or Special Operations Forces medical handbook, not the U.S. Army Special Forces medical handbook. This is the grandfather to that other one, and it is not even worth the $15 you're going to pay for it, unless you just want a cool knickknack to have on your shelf. Although there is still some good information in it, most of it is outdated, and most of it is not something you'd want to use anymore. But I will get on to what I think is the next best resource to the soft medical handbook, and probably the best resource for folks who don't have any kind of medical training whatsoever is this book. This book is called Where There Is No Doctor. Where There Is No Doctor. It's been around and it's been in print for some time now. You can get your hands on a copy of this for about $25. It's an amazing book. It's designed for village medicine, and it's designed for doctors and nurses who might be working in a village in an austere environment, and it has amazing illustrations in it, very simplistic illustrations in it. The first thing you're going to note when you open this book and you look through it is how simple and basic the illustrations are. They look like they were drawn by a 10-year-old, but that's intentional. That's so that if you're in an environment and you're trying to explain what people should do and you don't want to overcomplicate it, you can teach from the simple illustrations that are in this book. But the information is as good today as it ever was. It's an amazing resource for austere medicine. If I was going to pick one book to purchase, this would be in the top 3 for sure. I mean, it's a good book, but the best thing about this book is it is the simplest book to understand, and probably why it's so popular. A lot of the other books that we're going to discuss here in this video literally resource this book. They go back and use some of the lessons from this book because the lessons in this book are so tried and true. Like I said, for $25, it's an amazing resource. I love it because it uses very basic terms. I also like it because it's a great resource for teaching. All right. And it shows you a lot of really cool things. I love it because there's one section of this book that talks about casting. So if you have to set somebody who has a broken bone, how could you make a cast? What materials could you use to make a cast? It literally covers this in this book. It's an amazing book. It's worth having on your shelf in the event that the lights go out. If you want to talk about austere medicine, most people can't talk about austere medicine without talking about this, the book, Where There Is No Doctors. And a companion book to that is, of course, Where There Is No Dentist. This is actually by a separate author, but they're often purchased together. And in a series, there's actually a lot of books now in print. There's Where There Is No Doctor, Where There Is No Woman's Doctor, Where There Is No Dentist. The series itself is great. They all have the same simple illustrations in them. They're all very easy to understand. Not a lot of medical terminology. They talk a lot about hygiene and taking care of yourself as to prevent medical problems and what you are looking for when the medical problems arise. This one is especially good because dentistry is something that most people don't think about in the austere environment. We're all thinking about cuts and scrapes and bruises and breaks, but we're not thinking about hygiene or dental problems. And I'm telling you, a dental problem will sideline you worse than a fractured arm any day of the week if you're not expecting it. And so this is a great companion book. It goes for about $35. It's about a $35 Where There Is No Dentist. And literally in this book, it shows you how to drill and make a filling for a tooth if you have no other resources, using a myriad of substances. And all of it is tried and true. All of it's been tested in villages and third world countries. Great resource. Where There Is No Doctor, Where There Is No Dentist. Can't recommend them enough. Both great resources. So if you can get your hands on them, that's great. Both of these resources are available in ebook. You can get them on Kindle. You can get them on Amazon in a version of electronic. But like I said, I recommend if you're going to build a library of resources for austere medicine, that you get these in a print version. With these, I recommend you get the paperback version. These books, they're about that thick. They're not really big. They look about the size of a smaller school textbook. About 8.5 by 11, about that thick. Easy to transport, easy to read. But the greatest thing about it is you can make notes in it, and you should. So as you read through it, you can read these books front to back. You can learn a whole lot, and you can make notes in there about things that you know or things that you saw. Great resources. So I first saw this book when I was training as a young medic. I've always been a medic since the day I came in the military. So training as a young medic to go to be a special forces medic, and this book was on this book and its companion book were on the special forces or the U.S. Army Special Forces recommended reading list for medical training. So that's where I first came upon it, and so I acquired it back in the day. I've had my copy of this book for some time. There's been several editions since. A few minor adjustments to it, but even the old book I have is still tried and true. It's still got great information. It's still very easy to understand. Great resource if you can get your hands on it. Where there is no doctor, where there is no dentist, it's a grand slam if you can get your hands on it. The next thing we're going to talk about is the Survival Medicine Handbook, and I want to say we don't work for the publishers that write these books. We're not getting any kind of kickbacks. They're not sponsors in any way, shape, or form. These are just great resources that I have, that I know of, that exist. We don't make any money off this. I just wanted to put together an informational video of good resources that you can get your hands on, and these are good, trustworthy resources. This one, the Survival Medicine Handbook, is great. It's the thing I like about this. It's about a $30 book. Super easy to read. You can literally read it cover to cover. And I keep saying literally, and we're talking about books, but you can read it cover to cover. Easy read, great illustrations. It is a more contemporary book, meaning it's written in more contemporary terms and in terms that you can easily understand. There is a little bit of medical jargon in there, but there are great illustrations, and it's designed for the layperson. It's not designed for somebody who is a medical wizard or has any kind of medical background or training. So don't feel like you need to have any kind of medical background or training to read these books, especially not the Where There Is No Doctor series. But with the Survival Medicine Handbook, it's a little bit newer and very good. But you'll notice when you open this thing and you open to page one of the very first things that they do is resource Where There Is No Doctor, because just about every doc or person out in the austere medical community, whether they're in defense, military industry, or survival industry, knows that those are the go-to resources. And so they do cite Where There Is No Doctor quite a bit in this book, and some of the things that they teach, it's right in line with those. It's just written in a little bit more contemporary form, a little bit more grown-up form. Not as good a book for teaching, but a great resource for survival medicine. And there it is right on the cover. Like I said, you can get this thing for about $30. I recommend getting the paperback version of it, not the hardcover. If you're going to have any of these survival books, you're going to build a library of austere medical books, probably best to get the paperback version just because for ease of transport, or if you have to pack it for some reason. Plus, I prefer it when making notes. Or having to use it. If for some reason you have to use it in a pinch and you're trying to do austere medicine and you have to have a book open to a page and you're looking, it's a lot easier to have a paperback version than it is to have a hardback version. Although a hardback version of this book would make a hell of a weapon. So you could use it to chalk a wheel of a car as you're working underneath it, or use it as a blunt instrument to defend yourself. But otherwise, I would look for the paperback version of this. You can get it in the e-version, like I said. Electronic version of the book would be fine, as long as you have some resource that you know you're going to be able to transport with you. You could do it, but paper never goes out, lights do. So this is a great book, the Survival Medicine Handbook. It's worth the $30 you might pay for it. $30-$40 you might pay for it. So we're moving on to the next one. The next one is the Wilderness Medicine book. This is Auerbach's Wilderness Medicine book. You might hear this referred to as Auerbach's. At least in the community, it's often referred to as the Auerbach's. So if you hear somebody talking about Auerbach's or resourcing Auerbach's, they're talking about the Wilderness Medicine book. This book is literally, totally the wilderness medicine textbook. They really use this as the textbook in the wilderness medicine course. That's a real medical course that doctors and paramedics and park rangers attend. And this is the textbook for it. There is no more comprehensive wilderness medical book on the planet, as far as I know. It is the holy grail of all wilderness medicine books, and it covers everything. This book is so big. It's about this thick. It's the War and Peace of wilderness medicine, and it covers just about every topic you could imagine about being out in the wild, having to do medicine, having to be in an austere environment. It's in this thing, and it is an amazing resource. If you were to read this thing cover to cover, it'd probably take you a year or more. It's not intended for that. It's definitely a resource. It's more like an encyclopedia, although it has very, very detailed information in it about wilderness medicine, about plants, about food, about hygiene. It's an amazing, amazing resource. And because of it, you pay for it. This thing is about $120. If you can get it for $120, that's actually a pretty good deal. I've seen them go for upwards of $200. They are expensive for the hardback version, but it is the most comprehensive resource that you can find for wilderness medicine. It is an amazing book. If you can get your hand on an Auerbach's, it's worth its weight in gold. The one that I'm showing here is the 7th edition. I'm not sure if they're still on the 7th edition. I think that's the most current one. If not, they may be way past the 7th edition. I have the 7th edition. It's a great resource. If you have the opportunity to go take the wilderness medicine course, it's not cheap, but it's one of the most amazing courses. But it also requires some prerequisites. You got to have some medical training ahead of time. But if you ever get the opportunity to do it, it's an amazing course. This is an amazing resource, and if you can get your hands on it, I recommend to get it. If I had to say, if I had to place them in order, I would say that Where There Is No Doctor is probably number one. For people who don't have any medical training. If you can understand some medical training, or you want the most comprehensive resource for wilderness medicine, without a doubt, it's Auerbach's. Auerbach's is the number one then. So if you're an accomplished reader, then you'd probably want to get your hands on an Auerbach's. But like I said, it's an investment. It costs about $120, $130 for a copy of this. And there's a companion book for this one. It's a field guide. This is the Wilderness Medicine Field Guide. This is also from Auerbach. This is widely regarded as the best field guide book, meaning this book puts a lot of things in your hand that you can take out in the field with you as far as what plants are good, what plants are poisonous, what plants you can use for medicinal purposes, and is intended to bring along in the backpack. The Wilderness Medicine book, the Auerbach's original version, not so portable. It is a big book. It's a monster. This, on the other hand, is a little more portable. I think it sells for about $45 as a companion book. You can buy this thing for about $45 to go along with a field guide. Now, you could use the field guide alone, but if you had the money to spend, so the 45 plus the 120, so if you got $200 to spend in textbooks, and you wanted to buy the most comprehensive textbooks for being out in the wild and without any other medical help around you, these are probably the two that you want to get. If you feel like you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to teach hygiene, or you might be dealing with folks that don't understand, taking care of themselves, or don't understand the austere environment, then Where There Is No Doctor. And if you can get all three, you're set up pretty good. Then you're on the right track. If you started thumbing through these and look through these and you resource these, you'd be set up quite well for medicine in an austere environment. So great resources, unbelievable, without a doubt. Auerbach's the most comprehensive resources for austere medicine. If you can get your hands on one, I highly recommend it. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is a book that I've had for is probably one of the first austere medicine books I ever got. It too was on the SF, the Special Forces recommended reading list for the Special Forces medic course that I attended. So when I was a young medic in the 82nd Airborne, this is a young paratrooper's dream. I got this book, and I remember I used to read it out in the field when we weren't doing anything. Anytime we weren't busy, I would break this book out and I'd read through it. It's a very easy read. It's called Ditch Medicine. Ditch Medicine by Hugh L. Coffey is a time-honored book. It has a lot of great information in it. This is the older cover, so the original book that I have, this is my book, the original book that I have, Ditch Medicine. I've had it for some time, and it is a great resource. It again has some medical jargon in it, but hands down some of the best illustrations of what to look for when you are doing wound treatment. This is why this book is so popular, is because it has great illustrations, hand-drawn illustrations, easy to understand illustrations of how to deal with wounds. Everything from how to pack a wound to how to close a wound using sutures. So if you don't understand how sutures work or what to do or how to do a suture, this book teaches you how to do it. That being said, it's intended for medical people. It's intended for people who have some medical background. But I'm telling you, this thing is so easy to understand. If you were in a pinch and you had to do sutures and you had no idea how to do it, this book could guide you through it. It also has some other incredible resources about amputation, or incredible writing and illustrations about how to deal with an amputation, how to deal with broken limbs, and another incredible section in there about how to treat infection using sugar. Using a mixture of sugar and iodine, which is a product that you can acquire commercially called Sugardyne, but you can make it yourself. And it's very eye-opening. If you've never seen it before and you never thought of it before, you absolutely can do it. You can treat wounds and use sugar as an antibacterial agent. And this book will tell you how to do it. It's amazing. So this is the older this is the older cover of the book. The current cover of the book looks like this. This is the most current edition by Hugh Coffey. There is a companion series of educational classes that you can go take that go along with this book. But I'm telling you, this book is a very easy read, cover to cover. You don't need to take the course. If you just want to know about suturing, wound closure, wound care, what to do in the field, Ditch Medicine is an amazing resource. And you know it because this book is, it's roughly this big, across and about that thick. It's not a very thick book, but man, it'll set you back. It's about $130. They're actually really hard to find. They come into print and they sell out quick because it's a very, very popular book. It's a very popular book for ditch medicine, for austere medicine, and it's because it's so easy to read, and it's because it covers some of these subjects that the other ones don't. And most people, when I find that they're asking about austere medicine, when they're asking questions about what would I do, a lot of times the question comes up like, what would I do if I was out there and there was no doctor and I had to sew up a wound and I got cut really bad? What would I do? And this covers the do's and don'ts. Definitely make sure you clean the wound. What should you select when you're closing a wound? It's all in there, and it's a great resource with great illustrations. So most of these books, the SOF medical manual, the SOCOM medical manual, like I stated before, a lot of great pictures, a lot of great color pictures, very current, contemporary pictures. That's also the same for the Wilderness Medicine book. A lot of great photography, color photography. It's a great resource. But Ditch Medicine, nope. These are simple illustrations, easy to understand, especially when you're under pressure and you're trying to put together some medical care in an environment where you don't have somebody to help you and you just got to have a book. If you can get this book in paperback, it is solid gold. I wouldn't give it up. I probably wouldn't go for the e-version of it, the electronic version of it, but if I could get it in paperback, I would hold on to it. I still have my old copy of it. It hasn't changed much since it came out, and everything in it is still rock solid. It is still on the recommended reading list for all Special Forces trainees in the medical field. Likewise with Wilderness Medicine, Auerbach's, And Where There Is No Doctor. To this day, they still remain on the recommended reading list for soldiers who want to attend Special Forces medical training or Special Operations medical training. So if you can get your hands on them, I highly recommend them. And those books, all the books, I'll go through them one more time just so everybody can see them. So we're talking about the Special Operations Force Medical Handbook, great resource. Where There Is No Doctor, great resource. Where There Is No Dentist is a companion to Where There Is No Doctor. There's also, you can find Where There Is No Woman's Doctor out there, also a good one to have on hand. Some of them are by different authors, but they're comparatively they're very similar. They were designed as a series written by different authors. The Survival Medicine Handbook, great. If you can get your hands on it, go for it. Wilderness Med, an amazing resource. Amazing resource. You could thumb through this. You could keep it on your coffee table, and you could find something new every day that would blow your mind in this book. This is really the most comprehensive resource, and the field guide that goes along with it. And then, like I said, Ditch Medicine, if you can get your hands on it. Greatest medical resources. So if you're interested in austere medicine and you're interested in looking into what would I do if I didn't have a doctor, it's a slow process. You have to learn over time what you would do and come up with a plan. And like I said, you can't cover it all here. I can't cover it in a 30-minute video. I couldn't cover it in 130-minute videos. But I wanted to put something together to get you started. And so if you can get online and you can get these books and kind of resource them, or once the pandemic is no longer upon us and we can get together face to face, then and you want to do some training and want to talk about these resources, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. That being said, if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at matt@sheepdogresponse.com. Like I said, I'm the Chief Medical Instructor for Sheepdog Response. If you have any questions about these books, I'd love to answer them. Now, I don't know resources outside of the normal bookseller resources to get these. I don't know how to give you any special deal on them. And like I said, I don't work for these companies. I don't make any money from these publishers, but they are all reputable books. They are all great books to have, and they are typically regarded as the best books as far as survival medicine has gone and austere medicine goes. You can also visit us at sheepdogresponse.com, and as soon as we're free to leave our homes and our studios, I'd love to get back together face to face with you and get some training done in tactical trauma response, and tactical shooting and self-defense. So come on out and see us. Thanks.